Hey, folks, welcome back to the rehearsal room. Nick here.
Aaron here.
This week, we're going to talk about something that's gotten a bunch of people a bit heated over the results of what happened. But if Aaron could introduce the subject.
So recently, I saw a thing. It's a very popular YouTube channel that I was aware of, called the Punk Rock MBA. Guy, breaking down. Here's your band, or here's a scene. A lot of rock is dead, that sort of thing. I'd watched a few things here and there. But it wasn't something I was necessarily overly a fan of in any way. I'm no authority on him or anything else. But what struck me was apparently he has called it a day. He hit a financial level thanks to his YouTube videos that he has decided, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I think people are kind of thrown mainly because, number one, why would you throw away something so popular, something so financially popular, even that? But also the sense of like, well, you're part of something. Why would you walk away from it simply because you hit a financial part?
Yeah.
From what little I have read about it, apparently his feeling was he was never really down for it.
Wasn't down for the sickness.
Yeah, I mean, music was something he was once interested in, doesn't seem as interested in anymore.
Yeah.
Financial was always the interest, one way or the other. And again, nothing on him personally, whatever. People make their own decisions. I don't care. It doesn't affect my life in any way, shape, or form. It just got me to thinking about the idea when art and commerce meet. Where are these lines? Why are people feeling, for lack of a better word, maybe betrayed by this guy because he's come out and said, I made my money and I'm out, and this line that especially people like myself and Nick, we've been into underground music, for a better part of our lives. Financial is never anything that somebody puts together when you start a grindcore band. Nobody says it's grindcore. We put out 2 albums and then that's when we get our Learjet and our big mansions. Those things aren't ever really thought about. It's not to say that bands don't want to make money, nor do I have a problem with bands making money. In fact, let's be honest, money makes the world go round. If you want your favorite band to make another record, help them out financially. Tour, shirts, whatever the hell you can. I don't have a problem with any of that. It's just to say, where is that line? And this seemed interesting to me because, especially something like punk rock, which is, I don't think I'm saying anything out of order here as a guy who's not a huge punk rock authority in any way, but, it has always been very anti-establishment. That was the idea of punk, is to push back against establishment, whether governmental and political and so on and so forth. The idea of money was never a thing you talked about, selling out, so on and so forth. So for this guy to be putting that on the forefront as punk rock, and then to essentially say, Black Flag didn't break up because they went, woohoo, we're rich and we all got Corvettes.
Yeah.
And to see him say that, I thought, wow, that's bold, And it just made me, like I said, think more and more about what is art and commerce when they meet. What is the separation? How do people react to that? Because people seem to feel betrayed by this guy.
Sure, yeah.
So
I think, this also kind of raises the question of like how important is integrity when you're dedicating time to something like a podcast that's talking about something you might hold so dearly.
Absolutely.
A lot of that is on the listener, I think.
For sure.
What's the responsibility of the quote host or the person introducing the subject matter to you? As far as like, should they be as involved in the music scene as you are for them to be trusted? Do they need to be as involved as you for you to be able to, to come back and keep listening? Or can they just simply read off of a Wikipedia page like this guy
Which
he
admitted to. There were several episodes of bands where it was just like, well, what do you mean you've never heard them? Yeah, I don't listen to them. Well, how'd you get your information? I went to Wikipedia.
Yeah. So, I have mixed opinions,
Same.
obviously.
Same.
I've just to kind of put this out there, I've played in bands for a large part of my life. They've always been music styles that are not popular at all. Speaking for myself personally, I never anticipated to make any money off of this. Of course, there's a lot of people that might relate to this where they do music specifically for the purpose of making art, right?
Right. Right.
It never came across as like I'm gonna make $1 billion and buy houses left and right. You know, that's not the objective. It's more just get the music out there, whatever. I'm in my late 40s at this point, so I'll leave that for somebody else.
Sure.
I do feel like this person here, Finn, he was a little upfront about his intentions, but I think just the way he did it was kind of shitty,
Yeah.
He could have been a lot more forthcoming with saying, hey, I'm not at all into what I'm going to talk about. Whether the listener wants to dedicate the time and the just dedicate themselves to taking in the information, I can't really blame him for that. But I do agree that him coming in and just saying, here's my financial goal, it's met, I'm out of here. But again, what do we expect these people to be like? Like,
yeah, absolutely. How much are we projecting onto them what we want them to be as opposed to who they are?
Right.
And the great Tool line of all you know about me is what I've sold you.
Yeah.
The reality of the situation is, as the meme of the dog on the computer, online you could be anyone.
Yes.
And what he presented was trying to present. I have. He does have the credentials to some degree. He was part of punk rock. He was doing album covers. He did artwork. He was in the scene at some point.
Yeah.
Those were not lies. But it definitely seems the older he got, the further he got away from these things. And, ultimately filled a niche online that he saw was empty and knew how to monetize that in a way to get him money. That in and of itself is not a bad thing. I don't have a problem with that.
That's the part that kind of, is, I think, upsetting, where from what I took in, it was all a reason to make money.
Yeah, absolutely. It didn't come from a love of punk rock. It didn't come from a love of music or art.
And honestly, a lot of the bands that he mentioned in his episodes weren't punk by any means.
Interestingly enough.
I just think that was like, hey, this is the scene I come from.
Right.
And this is my credential, the NBA part.
Sure.
So he was telling you who he was from the get-go.
And as I said to you, I just want to make sure, because I don't think I'm alone. Honestly, the MBA part, I just thought was a neat little title to add. The idea that hey, Dr. Punk here, if you will. Yeah. You know what I mean? I never would have put the two, and I honestly didn't until I learned later that he actually does have, a marketing degree.
Right.
I didn't put that together. I just thought that was part of the name of
the persona.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That he is, like I said, hey, it's Dr. Metal here, and we're going to talk about Dr. Death,
This is Dr. Detroit.
Yeah, absolutely. And just that was, again, the internet has these people.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And that's what I would have assumed with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't think that I would have been alone on that. But again, you're right. To some degree, that's on me if I'm not going to investigate any further.
Also, the exploitative part that I feel is that everything he did was purposely to make money.
Yes.
It was all some sort of currency.
Right.
Whether it was online or not, he just saw every opportunity to make money, which is, I think, the more offensive part for me,
Well, especially when we're talking about these types. Look, if you are doing Beyonce reviews, then yes, of course it's about money. I get that, and that's not against Beyonce. I'm not shitting on her. No. I'm saying it's mainstream. Obviously, yes, Entertainment Tonight and all these shows exist to make money. Yeah. When you are putting yourself out as I'm covering underground music, I would like to believe, and I do think it is for most of these people who do this,
you are of the underground.
You're of it, and you're trying to promote it.
Sure. Yeah.
You're trying to say, hey, man, these are things I wish would get a little more notice from my peers.
Yes.
Now, if people outside of it also dig it, that's cool too.
Sure.
But I'm trying to promote it through our underground, if you will. Whether it was back in the day for us, zines, or just going to shows. You know what I mean? And I think this is a further of that. So when you present yourself that way, with this type of thing where people keep that thing in their pocket, it's not a mainstream thing. I think that's where some of that betrayal also comes from.
I also think, given, and this is something I mentioned off this recording, where I was like, the quote underground isn't what it used to be.
Sure.
You know, because there is ease of access. There is, you know, I think that's actually the thing that makes things not underground anymore, because anybody can be into anything at any given point now.
Sure.
There's such simplicity in reaching somebody across the world and saying, hey, check out this gore grind demo based off of the movies of, you know, I don't know, fucking David Lynch.
Sure,
you
sure.
know, whatever.
I hear you.
Right. And there could only be 5 cassettes ever made, but now that it's online, it's going to be there forever.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes. And
So there is technically no underground. Again, it's more of like he's using somebody else's creation to make money for himself.
yeah, that too.
Right.
Exploiting it in a way that is all about financial gain for him,
For
not
him.
in any way helping the band
Right.
or trying
So-
to promote.
I don't know whether his channel had any, you know, financial benefits for the bands he covered. I haven't looked into that, and
Yeah,
frankly, I don't want to. Like
yeah,
that's
I
you know,
don't.
that's their business.
Yeah.
But just the way he spoke about like, is rock dying? It like you had mentioned
Mm-hmm.
before, it's kind of like a gotcha title
Sure.
where you're gonna create buzz using somebody else's creation, but you're the only one benefiting from this.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's the part that's kind of shitty, you know, where you're exploiting again a band, their music, their scene,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately the fans, you know, because they're gonna come in and say, hey, somebody's talking about my favorite band.
Sure.
Let me listen or let me tune in. And 20 minutes later, half an hour later, you're getting whatever percentage YouTube is going to afford you.
Right. Right.
You know, and he did it to a point where he said, that's it, I'm out, even though he most likely had a full-time job. But again, this guy was nothing but money, money, money. Let me find opportunity and capitalize. He has been upfront about that for a while,
Okay.
you know, so it's still doesn't sit well with me, because I
Yeah.
feel like somebody coming in just to make money off of somebody else's creation, you're a leech.
Well,
you
the
know?
outsiderness of coming into our scene and you use it for your financial gain, and once you hit a level, you walk away from it.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's like you and you didn't. You know, a band that becomes successful on their own merit. You know, we were talking about like High on Fire. Okay?
Sure.
High on Fire winning you know, we again, art, commerce, selling out, whatever you want to call it. You know, High on Fire won a Grammy. I never heard anybody go, "Oh, fucking sellouts."
Right. Yeah,
Because
people were
High on-
stoked.
People were absolutely, because High on Fire did it by their own thing.
Right.
It's not like they went, oh, here's our cool acoustic album, and we have Kelly Clarkson doing guest vocals.
Yeah.
Like, they paid their dues and were recognized with a Grammy. Now, nobody really gives a shit about a Grammy, let's be honest with you, but it is an awesome thing for them. It's a
Sure.
reward that I am happy for them because they did it their way.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. I don't have a problem with money, people even making money. I don't have a problem with this guy making money.
Yeah.
He makes his own choices. I'm not necessarily calling him out. It just made me start to think more about, like, what is it? You and I are doing this podcast because we like talking about subjects like this. You know, when we are going to do episodes about bands that we love, it's because we want to promote those bands.
Sure,
If
yeah.
we get the opportunity to interview a band that's on tour, it will be because we want to promote that band.
Yeah, yeah.
It has nothing to do with you and I. We're not promoting
Yeah,
ourselves.
there is-
We're hoping even to get many money from it. You
I
know?
think there's also an expectation of, if you're going to be so dedicated as to, you know, give a band time and effort, right? There should be some conviction behind that.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
maybe
you
that's,
should-
Maybe that's the word right there. Conviction.
Yeah.
Right.
So like, if you're gonna dedicate an episode, much like this guy did for whatever band,
Right.
you are either talking about them positively because you like what they put out,
Right.
and you're going to, you know, give them their flowers, glaze them
sure.
up and everything.
Yeah.
Or you're going to just simply say, I don't like them because of this. But
Yeah.
he couldn't even do that, right?
Yeah. See.
So that's the part that also irks me.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the point of this then? Like, you're
Well,
you're
as you
doing
said-
what anybody else could have done,
Right.
and you're making money off of
And,
it.
and you know, then he would say, "You're right. Anybody could have done it, but they didn't.
But they didn't.
I got here first, and that's why I have my thing." And
Yeah.
again, I get it. I totally understand that.
sure.
You know, but it just is the part where, you know, conviction, integrity, these things. these things do mean a lot when you're in smaller, I'm going to keep using the word nonetheless, underground scenes. These things mean something. They should mean something. You know what I mean? That it's, because again, you don't start bands like this. You're not going to get you're not going to become super rich off of them.
I'm also going to, maybe I'm definitely adding more of this than I probably should, but it's a little, insulting when somebody comes into something, that you hold so dearly. And maybe that's on us, right?
That's a great point. Like, I think about it in these terms also. I heard somebody talking about this recently, and it did strike me like the Metalopolis, I don't know, the cartoon with the death metal band, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'm of a different generation. Every time I watch that, all I see is someone taking the piss out of something that I love.
Yeah.
I don't see it as funny. You're making fun of us. Now, I know that guy loves metal, and I know he plays all the instruments and does all the, I know he loves metal. But when I watch it, quite frankly, I'm a little like, fuck you, man. You know what I mean? Like, we're not all dumb Neanderthals who can't put sentences together. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys in bands are very educated. They're not dumb people. So you go like, if you love it so much, why are you making fun of it? Now, I know he doesn't not love metal.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's just those kind of things. Another one that comes to mind that made me feel that way, well, number one, it's a shit movie anyway, but that one with Marky Mark where essentially it's based on the Judas Priest thing.
Rockstar.
Yeah. The whole thing is like, oh, someday I want to be like them. Oh, my God, I got my opportunity. Oh, it wasn't what I thought. And then at the end, what he's doing, now I play coffee houses in like a semi-grunge band because now I'm doing art music.
Right.
Not that crazy metal, we get chicks thing. Hey, fuck you, man. Because my music's art, it's somehow better. You know what I mean?
Right.
I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. It's just all of that. You're right. We do hold this very dear to us. So when an outsider comes, exploits it, makes his money, and runs, I think this is how we see a band selling out, right?
Sure.
Metallica doing the Black Album for many was like, we're done here.
Yeah.
You guys tried to sell albums, not make a good album.
Yeah.
That's kind of the same thing in here. If imagine what, like, Minor Threat didn't break up because they're like, holy shit, we're rolling in dough. Like Fugazi, right? One of the things we all love about Fugazi, their CDs are always under a certain price. All their shows are all ages, and they only charge this much at the door.
Right.
Merch, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he's also one of these guys. I just saw recently a clip where they were like, hey, man, my buddy says you drink soda, and like if you're straight edge, what the hell? And Ian goes, well, you can tell your buddy, go fuck himself.
Yeah.
You know?
But that's also like on the person, who's looking at the art in this matter,
Yes.
and maybe putting more of themselves in what they're a part of.
I definitely am with you.
So
on
like
that.
to go back to your example
Please.
of Metalocalypse.
Yes.
I saw it. I laughed. I thought it was incredibly funny, but
Okay.
I also thought it was kind of bringing out the stereotypical parts of the scene.
Yes.
And the reason that I enjoyed it was because it was like, yeah, we can be pretty goofy from time to time.
I don't.
Yeah,
you're not wrong. It's just
and it's like, there are times that people who are fans of whatever,
yes,
will take themselves a little bit too seriously.
No doubt.
I know I have in the past,
for sure. No.
Whether it's God damn it! Like I went to go see Batman movies in the theater because I thought they were the best movies around at that time.
Sure. No.
And the same with
Glenn
bands.
Benton put an upside down cross, burned it into his fucking forehead. There's plenty of guys who take themselves very seriously in what they're doing.
I mean,
to a point.
There's a whole black metal scene around the world that
Cutting
takes
the
itself
shit
a
out of
little too
themselves.
seriously,
Yes.
right?
They're burning churches.
Yeah, so that does happen, and
No
for
doubt.
this guy who, admittedly, is into everything that he says he is,
Absolutely,
and has shown that
yes.
he is.
Gene Holigan plays in the band.
In the band, yeah, so it didn't bother me as much that that they did that. Rockstar, I mean, I didn't even know that story until it came out afterwards. So I've never really been a big fan of like Judas Priest.
Oh, same. No, I
right.
just,
So like when that movie came out, I was like, oh, cool. This guy was a part of it. It didn't bother me. But there are still aspects of music and art, just art in general,
Right.
that do feel personal because maybe the moment we take them in, it means XYZ emotionally to
Sure,
us,
sure.
right? So this guy is kind of exploiting the nostalgia that we
Yeah.
feel because every art, whatever art it is that we consume, is going to be a nostalgia factor afterwards because that initial moment, it's going to hit us so hard emotionally, it's going to make an impact of some sort
Yeah.
that we're going to try to relive that moment every single time afterwards.
Sure.
Right? What this guy did was come in and basically say, while you're feeling that, I'm going to make money.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah.
all I care about.
Yeah, I'm
right?
gonna exploit this thing, and
Yes.
again, he's not the first. He won't be the last.
Won't be the first. Yeah,
It's just
won't be
to
the last.
say-
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe if he was more upfront with it from the very beginning, I wouldn't care as much. Ultimately, I do not care at all.
Right.
I mean, I didn't watch a shit. I don't give a fuck about him. He
Yeah,
can do
yeah.
whatever he wants. I don't. It just, as I said, I do see where there's people who go, "Whoa, I feel betrayed."
Yeah.
You know.
yeah. I also think this has a lot to do with the fact that literally everything gets commodified now.
No, for sure.
You know,
For sure.
everything gets pushed to like make money. It's not a new thing that like social networks online have moved to like advertising based models. You know,
Yes, yes.
so like bands have a hard time of promoting themselves
Mm-hmm.
now more than ever because you have to either pay, and even if you pay, you don't get the reach that you were promised. You have the threats of like being taken offline just by a random person who's not into the imagery that you might be
Sure.
putting out there,
Sure,
or
sure.
even the music, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it depends on a lot of things. It's not as easy as it was before. It's still
No.
possible for
Yeah,
sure.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
But, you know, this guy came in with his know-how of how to exploit these things
For sure.
and then did just that.
And maybe there's some of that people are mad if we're being honest with ourselves that what he got over on you.
Yeah.
Or that what he did something you wish you had thought of before.
Sure.
You know, I'm sure there's a little bit of that for some people. You know what I mean?
sure.
You know, again, this isn't judgment on him. He runs his own life. He does his own thing. I don't. In the long run, I'm not affected by it at all.
Right.
His opinions, the way he thought about this, or even his site had nothing to do with my life. So I don't really care. It's just to say, again, the integrity. And we both know when you start taking money from other things outside of whatever art you're making,
Yeah.
nobody gives you money and doesn't expect something for it. It's not to say, you know, it's the thing we always hear the great Tom Petty lyric where the A&R man says I don't hear a single,
Yeah.
and it's just like if you run a big label, you're gonna have people coming in going I'm not hearing a single, guys. We got to sell this record. I got to make my money back. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So, you go, well, then that's why I'm on an independent record label. Well, great. Now you're also touring in a van. You're probably going to only do 20 cities, and you might make enough for gas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're always, and by the way, I also am not an idiot. I'm in a band. We're struggling. And a guy walks up with a suitcase of money and just says, "Hey, man, you want to tour in a van, in a bus, and we'll take care of all your expenses. Just sign here on the dotted line." I'd be an idiot to be like, "Oh, not me. I have integrity." Like,
Sure.
no, I mean, it would be very tempting to do, especially if you're a touring band and you see this as the next logical step. Now I do think there are, because we're in a different era of music, there are still ways you can do that and not have to compromise as much. But at the same time, any money that comes in, sometimes it can be just nothing more than just going, look, as a podcast does. All we need you to do is just say that, just be like, yeah, that is a great point, Nick. Speaking of great points, when you get a close shave with Schick, it may just be something like that. They don't care about what you talk about.
Right.
You can free to talk about whatever you want. Just make sure 15 minutes into it, you say our product.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a compromise,
Sure. Yeah.
So it's all of that. And you just wonder where the lines are different for different people. Totally understand that also.
I also think there's something to do with like you trying or maybe trying to pass off as creating something using somebody else's work.
For sure.
Again, the level that everything has been made a product. The fact that that you see something as currency only,
Yes.
and I need to make more of it and spend it,
Yes.
not to the benefit of the person that it comes from,
Right.
but me,
Right.
like, or this individual,
Right.
in this situation. You know, that's the cheater sensation that that's not
Yeah,
fair,
a cheater,
you know?
another great word. Yeah, it feels like you lied. You got over on us.
Yeah,
You want to believe, I guess. You
Yeah,
know,
for
maybe
sure,
it's,
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
it's stupid. Maybe it's being a child.
I
Maybe a little Pollyanna. So be it. I want to believe that this guy cares about the music the way I care about the music.
Yes,
So that's why
yeah.
he's doing this.
like ultimately I don't care about what a lot of people's opinions on
Sure,
the internet
sure.
say. Like I
find him
don't, you know.
interesting to hear, but it doesn't necessarily going to change mine one way or the other.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So, but it is kind of, I guess, satisfying might be the thing, where you read something from somebody, whether you respect them or not, and it's like, oh yeah, I do agree with that take.
Oh, of course.
Right?
We
Like-
all, yes.
Okay, cool. You're
He
hearing
must be right because I think the same thing.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, of course.
right.
What an astute person this man is. That's exactly how I thought
This is
it.
the smartest individual I've ever heard.
exactly.
Yeah. So there is something satisfying
Sure.
to come across.
Sure.
When you come across that, but ultimately your intake of art in any form is yours alone.
Absolutely.
Whether others agree with it or not.
Absolutely.
I do feel like he did cheat a lot of people with just the way he went about things.
Absolutely.
I don't necessarily think I'd feel any different if he were even more forthcoming with the way he did things, because it's still doing the same thing, right?
I guess what I say with that is at least then I know what stink I'm walking into.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, okay,
totally.
if this
Yeah.
is about money, then I know your intentions from the very beginning.
Yeah, and I
You
know
know?
to maybe stay away even
right,
more.
Then I know, okay, that's not for me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Not that like we ever dedicated any time, prior
Sure,
to this on any of his work.
No.
But it did come around a lot. Like I did see a lot of new videos being kind of recommended on like the YouTubes and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, people give a shit about this.
definitely.
They
I mean,
feel strongly about this.
Again, one of the interviews I saw was many people may know that Anthony Fantano, I think is his name, the needle drop guy.
Yeah.
He did a video on it. He felt the need to do one where, he addressed it saying, look, I don't know the guy. We're not like best friends, but I have met him a few times. And yeah, he seemed a little disappointed, to
Sure,
say the
yeah.
least. Like, wow, because he expressed, like, I do this because I love it.
Yeah.
I love music, and I want to promote these things. But also admitted, of course I'm going to do Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar is going to get a lot of hits, much more than if I did some small indie band. But I do the small indie band because I like them too, And that is part of his kind of, he has to give, there's a give and a take.
Yeah.
Like I like Kendrick and I'll do Kendrick, but I also know Kendrick will bring in more eyes, but hopefully those eyes stick around
For the other
to
stuff.
see the other stuff. But he also knows probably not.
I also think this sourness that people feel is because music is an art form that you can experience with other people.
Yeah.
Right?
Great. Yeah. Oh,
So I mean, you can experience it alone.
Yeah.
But I
know
think
what you mean.
when you go see a band or you hear
There-
a song and
there it
you're
is.
around people,
The collective.
the collective, yes, it's when you're around other people that maybe it hits them the same way it does.
Fuck yeah.
You look at each other at a show and you're like,
Oh.
hell yeah, you know what I'm feeling.
yeah.
We're on the wavelength.
That is, to me, that's the whole purpose of a live show.
Yeah,
If you really
yeah.
like, I can go home and listen to the record.
Sure.
The idea is that I'm standing in a room with hundreds of other people, and we all are emoting
Yes,
and
yeah.
receiving, and that is amazing. Now, many of what we listen to, maybe we are singing the lyrics to, but at the same time, like I've been there too, where you feel everybody singing that chorus, and you just
Right.
go like, feel like I'm 10 feet off the floor right now.
Right.
You
So
know?
like whether it's like the brutality of like a death metal band,
Sure.
the just the epic scale of the music of black metal or whatever,
sir.
Or like just the crushing riffs of like a doom sludge band. You look around and there are people experiencing it just as much, if not more than you, right? There's always going to be that one psycho who's just banging his head against the stage,
Right.
So I think also the fact that this guy singularly cheated all these other people from those types of experience. Not that he took them away.
No, but I know what you mean.
He gained something from their experiences, So for him to come in and not shit talk these bands, but make these episodes where clearly he's not into the music.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Like
Like,
he's doing a
that's-
book report.
Exactly. You know, like
Not out of love, not out of like I want to promote. I'm
Yeah.
doing a book report.
Yeah, exactly.
I need content. To
Content, that's all it was,
To keep
content.
the views coming in.
right. Yeah,
You know?
and you know, somebody could say that that's what we're doing, but we're also not we're not, you know, we're not intending to make money off of this.
No.
I think it can come off that, you know, both Aaron and I are fans of a lot of the stuff we talk about, even if we don't know all the details about it.
Sure.
You know, we do dedicate a bunch of our time, like, in kind of investigating the bands that we're into,
absolutely.
the movies we're into, and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So, you know, not to say we're in a better position at all.
No, but even
But-
that. Okay, that's a thank you. I don't mean to interrupt. I just you bring up a great point. It's like this. You and I could sit here right now and talk about, let's say, astrophysics. Okay.
Sure.
I don't know how long that conversation would go.
It's a very short conversation.
Very short.
Yeah.
I barely can say the word. So don't ask me to spell it. But it is to say, we may have a conversation about it.
Right.
But I'm sorry, if Neil deGrasse Tyson walks in this room and goes, well, hold up, gentlemen. You and I don't get to go, I'm sorry, Neil, but...
Yeah. Step aside,
Step
mister.
aside. I think we got it from
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Like, no. He is an authority.
Sure, yeah,
And
yeah.
therefore, his opinion holds more weight.
Right.
Now, those are things that are also factual.
Sure.
When we talk about art, it is subjective.
Subjective. 100%.
Why I look at a Jackson Pollock and enjoy it, I can't tell you why when it looks like a 3-year-old threw a tantrum on a piece of paper.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But having said that, that is the beauty of art. There are certain facts that are undisputable, but that so much of it is subjective that we are talking about emotion. We're talking about the things that it touches our heart. It touches.
Yeah.
It's primal in
Sure,
that way.
yeah.
So when you exploit it, when you turn it into nothing but a commodity to gain financial,
Yeah.
it takes away from it. And when you do that even more, when it is lower level genres of music who believe for the most part, and I think that is true, in the integrity, in doing it from the heart,
Yeah.
and you're exploiting that by coming in, that's heartbreaking.
For
you know?
sure. Yeah,
Again,
yeah.
if we found out tomorrow that High on Fire simply called it a day because they finally finished their mortgage payment, like, what? What? Like, we're bummed more on the other side where it's just like the guy goes, look, man, I have to quit High on Fire as the drummer because I can't do the touring anymore. It's just too much for me. And I have a family. And you go, dude, right on, brother. We get it. We totally understand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He didn't go like, I finally finished the 6th bedroom on my house, so I'm calling it a day. You know what I mean? Like, so
But
there's...
now let's explore that.
Please,
though.
please.
Would we be mad if a band that's been around for so long, or even just any band,
Please,
right?
please. Yeah.
And said, "Hey, we're gonna make music to the point where we can buy a house for ourselves, and then we're gonna stop being a band because we also have day jobs." Would we be opposed to that
I mean,
as fans? You know,
Again, I would love to paint with a broad brush. I do think I would take it case by case. Like, look. Whatever you think of a band, like a Five Finger Death Punch or a Disturbed, I don't care. If you're a fan, you're a fan. I don't give a shit. You cannot tell me those bands aren't making art because they believe they are.
Of course.
But you also cannot tell me that their art isn't compromised by understanding I need to sell records because I have a lifestyle that I would like to maintain. And if I don't sell records, then therefore I don't maintain this lifestyle. So I need to make sure my album has a ballad. We're going to do this. So the art starts to compromise a little. You know, you've seen this where the guy from, Jesus, I can't even, Godsmack is whining about what's the point of even making records anymore.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Can you imagine Picasso going like, what's the point of painting anymore? I can't even sell one of these. Like Van Gogh, who sold nothing when he was alive, if I'm pretty sure. I'm not an art expert by any, but I'm pretty sure. Like the guy barely was selling shit when he was alive.
Yeah.
You know, and then dies, and all of a sudden everybody goes, "Hey, that's some really good shit." Like,
Right.
You know, but he never stopped. He didn't stop painting because that was in him. That's what it was about. The integrity of that. So I think of that in.
See, but what if there was an example of a band that came around and they were, you know, they went through the motions
Sure.
of being a young band, playing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday shows, right? But they did from the get-go say, we are only going to get to this point. and we're gonna work hard, but we're only gonna work to this point because once we reach it, we're done. We're gonna get old, and we're gonna buy houses, and we're gonna do our thing.
I think if that came out from the beginning, I wouldn't be interested.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
but what if it was something that you heard and you were into? You know, and I know these are a lot of like
no. I
what
know.
ifs, you know, right?
And alien lands. No,
Right,
I know. No, I know what you're saying.
Like,
and
would it hold the same weight as anything else? You know, like
I would. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a fantastic question. I really don't, because it would just be like when Opeth stopped doing the growling vocals.
Yeah,
I was bummed. Okay. I really love that band. They stopped doing it. I stopped listening. Well, he did it again. So I thought, all right, let's give it a shot. Oh, the album is amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
It's like coming home again, you know? I personally like Metallica's Black Album. For me, when they sold out, was the Load and Reload. That's when I went, okay, we're done here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, the reason I stopped, I didn't care that they sold more records. I didn't care that they were on a major label. None of that. They simply changed the art in a way that I didn't find likable anymore. Right. I didn't want to hear it. Yeah. Mastodon's another great one that people got mad because they signed to a major label. I don't care about the major label.
Right.
They changed the style of music that they did. I don't want it. But then we also, let's be honest, whether it is Minor Threat, Black Flag, Neurosis, these bands that essentially said, I will forge my own path. Neurosis saying, no longer will we be on a label.
Yeah.
If that means we all have to have day jobs so that we can record what we want, when we want, how we want, and no one's in the room to say how to make it more commercial, that's what we're willing to do. Like, we celebrate that, right? Like, there's a sense of like, man, they're like us. They're an everyman. You know what I mean? Yeah. To some degree, right? And I like that. There is something to kind of hang my hat on that feels cool to say that. You know what I mean? I'm also not mad if you start a band and you want to make a little money and you have a hit and, you know, you make money off that hit.
For sure.
I don't have a problem with that. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a great question.
Because like using Metallica.
Please.
A lot of people jumped ship after the Black Album.
Understand.
Maybe even during the Black Album, right?
Yes.
So Load and Reload were probably attempts at like making something of the time.
Oh, for sure.
And it shows.
God,
you know,
yes.
and in my opinion, they never really recuperated from that.
No.
You know, but also they're putting out these records because they want to write this music.
For sure.
This is the music they're writing. This is the music that they're collectively saying, yes, this is a Metallica
even what
record.
they're still putting out now isn't exactly what you would call radio friendly.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You know,
right.
It's still would not going to go on your mainstream pop music station.
For sure. So, you know, and Metallica at this point is Metallica Incorporated,
yes.
right? So it's this business
absolutely
structure that employs people. People are dependent on them.
Yes.
Et cetera, et cetera.
It's a corporation.
It's a corporation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, where are we stoked for Metallica and where does it end?
Yeah.
Or like, where do we say, no, this is not what I wanted, right?
Yeah.
You know, like, because we want all of our bands to succeed at some point.
Absolutely.
We want to be happy for all the bands we listen to. You know, I would love for everybody involved in whatever band I'm into to not have to struggle.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because we hear the stories of, you know, bigger bands that are touring 100,000 days throughout the year.
Yeah.
You know, and they're still traveling in a shitty, broken down van.
No doubt.
So,
no doubt.
What's the point that they can reach, and the fan base is going to be like, okay, that's cool, you know, like, or is that even up to the fans? Is it up to the band?
Oh, it's up to the band. Listen, the band can do whatever they want. The band, you know,
for sure, yeah.
But I'm saying,
like,
no. I know exactly what you're saying, and I'm with you. For me personally, I will only speak for myself.
Yeah.
It has always been about the music.
Sure.
I don't give a shit what label you're on. I don't give a shit how much money you make. I don't give a shit how many albums you sell. You know, you and I are big fans of Sun. There was a moment where, and maybe they still have that moment, you know, I'd hear from people, oh, it's you know, all the indie kids are into them, or that's a poser, you know, that's a, you know, and I'd be like, listen, my grandmother could show up to a Sun show. I don't give a shit, because when she's gone and all the posers are gone, I'm still going. I'm still going to be there because I like what they do. When they stop doing something I like, that's when I'll stop liking them.
Right.
It's not about what they're selling. It's not about, I'd also be lying if you don't go to some Sun shows and you look around and you realize you probably don't even listen to metal.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then again, they appeal to people outside of metal because they're artsy and they do stuff with. So that's fine too. It's just simply to say, for me only, my criteria has always been about the music. When you do something I don't like as a band and that's the way you're going to carry on, I go to the next one. See you later. It's okay. Thanks for the ones you did. Thanks for the things that I loved. But that direction just ain't for me, man.
Yeah.
So it's never. Whether you tour in a bus, whether you tour in a van, no. But wishing them success, absolutely. I'm a huge Primitive Man fan. In our world, they're pretty fucking successful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But they do tour in a van. They do slug it out like a lot of bands do, and good on them, and I love them for it. But if tomorrow, I don't know, for God forbid, for some reason Columbia signed them and put them in a tour bus and they were playing the Forum, I wouldn't be mad. The Misfits, right?
Yeah.
I didn't hear Sellout when they played the Forum.
Right. In fact, people celebrated because
finally getting their flowers.
Yeah. They're getting paid, and that's what everybody wanted for them back in the day.
Sure.
And now that they're having it, okay, of course you're gonna hear the people kind of like, I'm not into that, or I never was into that, or whatever. Like, fuck that band. But they're also bringing out a bunch of other bands that maybe were either directly influenced and were also huge fans of the band.
Yeah.
So that's cool that the Misfits can do these shows.
Sure. Interestingly enough, one of the bands that we saw open for them is the one Brody sings for.
Distillers.
Let's be honest. The Distillers sold more records as a band when they were a band than the Misfits did when they were a band.
The Distillers had bigger shows than the actual Misfits did way back in the day. Yeah.
I mean, they had MTV, they had all this stuff. The irony of but now they can open up for the Misfits when they play, the California Bank of America Stadium.
And here's the thing too: we know the Misfits are playing these shows and they're getting paid, so we know they're making all this money.
Tons.
Right. I don't want to even try to pretend to know how much they're making.
No,
but they're getting paid.
They're definitely.
So, are we upset at that? No, right?
No,
I'm not.
No,
but that's also because they're making money off of the thing that they made.
Right.
This is their art.
Yes.
This is at least two of them are the people that were there, right?
For sure.
So I think that's pretty cool that if they're gonna work it out to their benefit,
yes,
have at it.
Yes, and proudly give them my money. Here it is.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm happy to whatever your ticket costs. Well, for the most part,
exactly.
To a degree, that's more my financials, not theirs. It's just to say, if you're playing live, my God, I will finally see Glenn Danzig sing for the Misfits. Are you fucking kidding me?
Because we never expected
Never of course I'm showing
in a million years.
And I celebrate it, and I think it's wonderful for them to get their comeuppance this way.
Sure.
And I don't think about the financial, and they're in punk, and yet I don't care about the financial. I don't care about any of that. You know what I mean? And I guess that's it, right? For me, again, I'll only speak for myself. Integrity has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Maybe I celebrate it in ways that aren't necessarily fair, but I always back to Black Flag to a degree. Henry Rollins. How much bigger could he have been? I don't know. But maybe he couldn't. But then again, he also had that talk show on IFC.
Yeah.
He's hosted 120 Minutes on MTV. It's not like the guy literally lives in a cave.
Right.
But nonetheless, you go could he have been bigger? Probably, but he's also chosen to be, I know who I am, I know what I want to do, and I'm going to forge my own thing. And by the way, he's also financially secure.
Sure. I've always been of the opinion that he was as big as he was because that's what he wanted, right?
Right. There were choices that he made to put him where he wanted to be. And we love that about him in a lot of ways. I certainly do.
Yeah.
And I think again, you spoke of this earlier, how much are we projecting on them as opposed to what they are really? I think we're lucky enough in much of the music that we're in that despite, like I said, all you know about me is what I've sold you.
Right.
I think these guys are being very honest about it. I don't think they're lying about the fact that I do have a day job, or touring is the way I make my money. So please buy a T-shirt when I come and see you, when you come and see us. So those kind of things is just like one of the things that I think punk rock for sure, even metal to a degree. I think the reason the fans feel that way too is there was never a sense with either of them, and especially in punk, especially in its early days, there was no us and them. It was us. The famous book, This Could Be Your Band Too, I think is what it's called, or something like that, where it talked about the punk and indie scene. We could be your band or something like that. Don't worry about it. The point is to say, you could watch Black Flag, and when they were done, they were hanging out watching the next band, and you could actually say, hey, what's up? Hey, that show was great. And you weren't treated, they weren't rock stars. They didn't want to be rock stars. They were part of it. And metal's very much the same thing in a lot of those ways. There's a higher echelon where maybe it's a little, not going to go backstage and say hi to Danzig when we go see him. But at the same time, Danzig does show up and do signings.
Sure.
Where you can meet him and shake his hand, say thank you, and he signs your thing. You know what I mean? He will show up to promote his own movie. He will show up to those things. So, there's that sense where, like, I'm not just listening to the music. I'm in it. I'm a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? And I think when you add those things and then you present yourself as someone who's an authority on this kind of section of art, only to find out that it's always been about commodity, that's heartbreaking in a way.
Sure. Yeah,
it's upsetting, and I think that's where it comes for me, because again, I don't think you have to be a starving artist. I don't think you have to be poor. There's nothing wrong with making money. Bands, especially nowadays, I've seen it with your bands. The money you guys put in, what's that old meme? A touring band is a bunch of guys who rent a $500 van, put $12,000 worth of equipment so they can make $20.
Yeah.
And there's something for that. When you guys are paying for a recording, you're paying for your record, you're paying for your distribution, you're paying for, someone to spread the word.
Yeah.
So I'm supposed to be mad because they sold a record for $25? Fuck you, man. No, you shouldn't get that for free. You should buy that.
Sure. Yeah.
You should help them out. You loved it, didn't you? Well, then what's there's plenty of times, and I don't say this is no brag. It's just to say, 25, hey man, how much is the shirt? Oh, it's $30. Here's 40. Keep the 10. Don't worry about it.
Right.
Hopefully I'll get you gas. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when all those things come into it, whether that is, I don't know. Maybe people will think that's silly. Oh, come on, to care that much. Well, fuck you, man. Yeah, I care that much. I love this genres. I love this kind of scene, and I put my heart and soul into it. And to have that reciprocated from the bands or from the people that are around me, because I know they love it as much as I do, and in many of the same ways.
Yeah.
So to have someone exploit that and almost use it against us, fuck you, man. That's a kick in the balls.
That part is relatable for sure. I can definitely understand that. Being a person that's played in bands, of course, I'll always appreciate anybody who's that, complimentary and graceful with their, their donations and stuff like that.
Right on.
And I will always be thankful of a person who finds more in whatever music I'm a part of.
Sure.
But yeah, I do agree with the like, it feels like you've been cheated, which is actually that, that famous quote from Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols,
right.
Which interestingly enough, the Sex Pistols, who
a
punk band who were also on Top of the Pops, a major mainstream show, right?
Yes.
So
and put together by a guy who's kind of a Svengali of how can I piss people off? How can I...
Not just that, but also how can I make money?
Absolutely. Malcolm McLaren was definitely about making money. It's like they didn't just happen to get on a boat behind the Queen and sing God Save the Queen.
Exactly.
Like, that was all about promotion.
Sure.
And it was all about, well, if they won't say our record, well, then we'll just tell them what it is, and then the kids will go buy it.
Right.
There were a few happy accidents.
I do understand that people will put more of themselves and how they feel about stuff like this. I definitely understand the feeling cheated, because if somebody came in and told me like, oh, well, this one band that you really, really love was all just an experiment to see how, I'd definitely be like, wow, what the fuck, man?
I've literally had nightmares of that. I literally is the wrong word. But that has, like, what if I found out tomorrow that this band was all a ruse?
Yeah.
That would break my fucking heart, dude.
Well, that actually brings up I don't know if you heard about this.
Please.
The AI band, the Doom band that was created and put out there and promoted.
Ugh.
And people were into it. Websites reviewed it.
Oh.
And people were so into it that, the people behind that project had to come out and say, by the way, this is fake.
Ugh.
Nobody in this band is real. The music isn't real. It's all AI. We just took all the stereotypical aspects of this genre and made this album.
Ugh.
So like, yeah, I can understand how people feel cheated by that because it's not genuine, right?
Authenticity means something, right?
It does. I think more in this day
Yes.
where we're threatened by this looming threat of, AI taking everything away.
Sure.
Because while it was written about in science fiction stories, like it's going to help humanity, it's doing the opposite.
Well,
it's taking jobs away. It's taking opportunity away.
Of it all.
Again,
because it could help humanity. Unfortunately, everybody goes, yeah, but I'm not going to do this without making some money off of it.
Right. Yeah. The ease of making something a commodity as well.
Yeah.
You could take somebody else's work, put it up on Bandcamp, distribute it yourself, and unfortunately, you're going to make the money. You can put it up and distribute it in X manner of ways.
Right.
And unfortunately, the person who created the art isn't going to be none the wiser, or even none the having a few extra bucks in their wallets.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, I totally understand the feeling of being, having the wool pulled over your eyes and stuff like that. So it does suck,
It
but
does.
hopefully, and this doesn't happen as much anymore. Hopefully, people can kind of wade through the fog, as it were, online.
Yeah. I think it's, I think objectively we all want to trust.
Yeah.
Going into anything,
For sure. Yeah.
I feel like I'm repeating myself but another great line, the face-to-face line, trust is something that comes easy when you've never been a victim.
Right.
It just, now people will be, and I'm one of those people. I always have to remind myself, like, remember, what you're watching has been edited. What you're watching is coming from a perspective. That doesn't mean they're lying.
Right.
It just means, like, somebody wants to tell a story.
Yeah.
So just don't walk away from it thinking, well, now I know everything. Whether I've read a book, whether I've seen a documentary, whether I watched a movie based on a true story. Like, there's so many perspectives of this. Try taking them all in before you have an opinion.
Because the end result is this is going to build cynicism.
Right.
And it's going to just make people more sour, more bitter.
Yes.
It's going to, like you said, it's going to build distrust. We're going to go around thinking like, well, you're not genuine.
Right.
And then we're going to start holding people to certain standards
There you go.
that even sometimes we're not going to be able to meet ourselves.
No.
And it's just going to be a world of criticism left and right. Like, hey, you're cheating me on this, so I'm going to get one over on you as well, right?
And by the way, taking away from something that is ultimately supposed to bring us all joy.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, art can give you many different things, but in the end, even when it brings you sadness, to some degree, that's a joy.
Sure.
Because it made you feel something.
Yeah.
The purpose of art, ultimately. And to turn it into this, it's like, Right. And again, I guess a small threat being not the best word, but the small threat of it is, this is shit I care about, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you did a podcast about my family and it was all about, what an asshole.
I'd be like, how'd you find out all this stuff?
Right. Well, yeah, that too. But, they got cameras. But you're definitely like, like, hey, fuck you, man. Who do you think you are? And in some ways, I'm sorry. Yeah, this music, it is my family. It is my life. The metal scene or punk scene is that. It is a, what's the word? It is a lifestyle to some degree. I mean, I'm sorry, but for me, I mean, it dictates to what I dress. It dictates the way, it doesn't make me, but I want to dress that way because, yeah, I do want to promote the band that's on my shirt. You know what I mean? Like, I saw the guys up on stage and go, that's what I want to look like. You know what I mean? So it's like, these things matter to me. I care about them. So if you want to use them for your own financial gain where you don't even care about it, or you want to take the piss out of it in a way that feels like you're actually just shitting on it, not lovingly shitting on it. Like, back to the Metalopolis thing, like, I don't know, that feels like what you're saying. I do hear it, because like Spinal Tap is in that way. Like, I don't
Right.
think those guys hate rock and roll or even heavy metal to some degree. I think they just saw the funny parts of it and made a movie about it. Like,
Sure.
touring in general, you know what I mean? I just, again, sometimes overly sensitive. I can definitely be. I don't pretend, because I
Yeah.
want to be protective of this thing that I love and hold so dear.
I used to definitely feel that way when I was younger, like especially like about punk,
Sure,
know.
I can imagine. Yes.
But it's not so much that like I grew out of it or anything. It's just like I kind of took a step back and said, well, these people are making what they're making regardless of me.
Absolutely.
This is going to exist regardless of me.
You're absolutely right.
Right. So why, for me personally,
I got you.
why would I feel insulted if the Misfits turned into Sam Hain, turned into Danzig?
Yeah.
Like why would I feel insulted that Rollins left Black Flag and then started Rollins Band?
I got you.
Because they're still doing something that they love, right?
Absolutely.
It's not going to hurt me. It's
No.
not going to benefit me, and I can be into it or not. And maybe I also use the stereotypical uniform of a metalhead or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to be honest. This is also because of laziness. Like I'm blind, so I can't see myself in the mirror and say, "Hey, I'm going to comb my hair this particular way."
I hear you.
But this dressing like this makes it easier for me. It just so happens that a lot of people are, probably fans of the bands that I'm wearing on my shirts as well. So
Sure.
we have something to talk about.
Yeah.
And it does still build a sense of community.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I have kind of separated myself and how I feel about the music scene as it is, just because I know it's going to exist without me.
Oh yeah,
Anyway,
no,
right?
Yeah, and again, it's like I said about like Disturbed or Five Finger Death. I don't care that they exist. If you enjoy them, listen to them.
Sure.
Whatever brings you joy. I'm not interested in that part. You know what I mean? It's just to say that again, for me, I choose otherwise. You know what I
Right.
mean? In that way. Yeah. No, I totally hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
It's a sticky issue
It's
all the
a
way around. It's not. I don't know that
touchy
there's,
subject.
It is, and-
There's no right or wrong.
Not necessarily. No, I just like I said, thought it was interesting. I could see why people would be upset. I could see why others go, "Who gives a shit? He's making money." That's the,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. That is one thing that has definitely changed in our time that we have seen.
For sure.
Selling out really doesn't exist anymore, especially in mainstream music. Like there's nothing wrong with selling a bunch of records.
Right.
When we grew up in the 90s, especially, like that was a dirty, dirty word. Selling.
Oh yeah.
So the idea of commodifying anything was like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So that has kind of gone away, which I get to. We live in America, the two of us.
It's expensive.
Capitalism is what it is, and there's nothing wrong. However you make money off your art, I am fine with. Ultimately, what I'm looking for is integrity. I want to know that you're doing it because you love it.
Yeah.
And whatever the after effect of that is whatever comes.
Yeah.
That it was never necessarily the ultimate goal.
Right.
If your ultimate goal was just like, I love making art, whatever that means, and that's what I want to do with my life, and come what may, then I'm with you 110%.
Yeah.
Whatever comes. Oh my God, my painting sold for $1 billion. Well, congratulations, you're a fucking billionaire. I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I said, something interesting, and I knew bringing it to you, we could definitely go on about it for quite some time.
Yeah.
But again, it's an interesting issue.
We actually had this conversation for like an hour before we sat down to record this. So,
And realizing, like, wait a minute, we should probably. Why are we wasting this? This is good content.
Yeah, we were like, hey, shut up and let's talk about it.
Let's stop talking about it and start recording.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what have you been listening to?
Actually, I've been listening to. Let's see, big one. I kind of went backwards and forward at the same time. Got real deep into Nas. His first 5 albums I absolutely love. But there's that late 90s, early 2000s shiny suit era, especially a lot of the New York hip hop that I just, but I thought, you know what? Why don't I just listen to it? But I deep dive into a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So I was listening to those first 5. The Hidden Hand, Scott Weinrich. I love them. I think they're fantastic. They did 3 albums, I think 2 EPs. More progressive, kind of doomy stuff than what he was doing before. They also have the an ironic song where it's called "Screw the Naysayers," in which they say the hidden hand is here to stay. Screw the naysayers. It didn't age too well, but yeah, deep dived into them. I hadn't heard them in a long time, and definitely one of those ones where I'm like, every song I'm like, why the fuck am I not listening to these guys more? You know?
Yeah.
Really, really, I love them a lot. The other one, it was something I found somewhat new. The album I'm listening to is not new, but they are somewhat new. Called, okay, it'll be our evergreen game of can Aaron pronounce it? There's a little hint, kids. He cannot. You can go ahead and bet on that. Molkat Doma. They are from Belarus.
Okay.
Let me see. I'm trying to look up their name. I'm trying to, because I want to. It means something.
Okay.
The Molkat. Oh, damn it! I keep.
It's a cat with moles.
No. It actually is and I cannot even begin to pronounce the name of the album that I'm listening to because it's not even in English.
All right.
So I won't even try. It means houses are silent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Very electronic, Depeche Mode-y kind
Cool.
of things.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely love it. Also has this thing. You remember when Witchcraft's first album came out and everybody was doing the, is this new or is this an old that somebody found? It felt like it was recorded in the 70s, and then we all, oh, no, it was actually, but it's still fantastic. It has a little bit of that, where there's like this almost poor recording sound to it that makes it sound like maybe it came out late 80s and nobody just discovered it or something.
Right on. That's cool.
Yeah, and I'm loving it. It's really, really good.
Is it like synthy?
Very synthy?
Okay.
Like post-punk, new wave, synth pop is what they,
Right.
add all those little hyphens.
All good stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, just saying Depeche Mode-ish is
very
already
much so.
Depeche
I would
Mode being
say
the absolute goats. Hell yeah.
Lebanon Hanover is a band
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they recommend. Just really, let's say I would say you would you dance to it while you have a woman in a well that you tell to put lotion on its skin. That kind of
hell
music.
yeah. All right. Yeah.
Very much digging on that. I was listening to that quite a bit. Another one, my boy Boldy James, big
Right.
fan of his, hip hop guy. This guy, there is no rest for his wicked. The guy put out a record, I'm pretty sure December 26th, then put another one out in January 2nd, and just put another one out last Friday.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Very prolific then.
Yeah.
To a fault.
I feel like it is. I love the guy. I love his voice. I love the way he raps. His flow is amazing. He always seems to get with really good producers. Coming from a world where something like Tool goes, well, it's only been 15 years, give us 2 more and we'll release our next album. You go, listen, man, you put out 5 really good albums, but what if you just put out one amazing album?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was, I hate saying that because, again, it is good. I do like it, but I just go like, yeah, man, I don't know, Other than that, that's been about it. And again, going back to the old favorites, I went down a little bit of a Morbid Angel hole, a little Deicide hole.
Good holes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Celtic Frost.
Oh yeah.
Triptychon was another one I was listening to quite a bit this week. Nails. It's actually still in the car. I still get, yeah. So yeah, that but that
Mocha Doma.
yeah, we'll go with that.
Molcat, something like
Molcat Domo,
Yeah.
Doma,
Doma,
yeah.
yeah.
Really, really. I like. There's
I'll check 'em out.
something
Yeah.
very cold wave feel about
Yeah.
it that I really like. How about you?
I've gone backwards with my listens this week. I started off with Tragedy.
Okay.
Great kind of melodic crust band from the Pacific Northwest. They also have a black metal project called Nightfell.
Oh, I did. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that's Todd Burdett, the guitarist and vocalist. Both bands are amazing. Tragedy is like a band that I fucking will and can listen to forever.
I know. Yeah. No. I've known you're a huge Tragedy fan.
Yeah, I fucking love Tragedy.
I did not know that Nightfell was kind of
associated
adjacent.
with them.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
had
yeah.
no
So
idea.
that's they're both cool bands, and like just a like dark harmonies in the music of each one. You
Okay.
know, Tragedy of course sounds super like apocalyptic, and it's probably one of the staple bands in that genre.
Right on.
I also went back and listened to what did I listen to? Oh, another like D beat type of band, Driller Killer.
Oh,
Uh,
name I'm definitely
fucking
familiar.
ferocious sounding.
Right.
Them and another one called I'm gonna massacre this. Frieden Dag 13, which is
Okay.
like Friday the 13th in
Okay.
Swedish, I think.
Okay.
Just great fucking music. You know, just awesome music. The Crown was another one.
Oh wow! Oh wow! There's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, they apparently came back and have like a few newer
Oh
albums.
really?
But I'm not too fond of those. I
Okay.
liked like the first three.
Okay.
They actually re-recorded one with Tompa, who is known for being the vocalist of At the Gates.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, so he's on one of them, and then they have another singer. Well, it's all re-recorded, same songs.
Okay.
You know? You could definitely tell like one's a little bit more vicious than the other one.
Right on.
I'll let you decide which is which for you.
All right.
But the last one is a band that we're actually gonna see later on tonight. So
Right on.
by the time that we put this out there, you know this show will already have passed. But the band in question here is a Specimen, Mexican hardcore punk band.
Right on.
They've been around since the mid '80s. One of the earlier bands that I ever got into with another old friend of mine. I've always loved their music. It's, you know, some of it can get kind of goofy, but some of it can get pretty serious. But it's all heavy. It's melodic. The dude sings in a gruff voice and then like in a clean voice as well.
Right on.
You know, and it's just cool music for me. It's always comforting music.
Right on.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
looking forward to seeing them.
yeah. I think it'll be a good time. You know,
A quick note on a band you mentioned in our last episode, the Ard.
or yeah,
I listened to them.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
stuff. It was really cool. Interestingly enough, the guy who does it is in another band, a popular atmospheric black metal band from England called
Winterfell.
Phil, is that what
Felleth?
it is?
Winterfelleth.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, because it's another one where and I looked at the proper spelling because it's in Old English. I guess it means October, and yeah, it's got a letter that doesn't appear in our alphabet in any
Right.
way, shape, or form. But yeah, he's actually one of the members of that band.
Yeah.
Which I remember the first couple I really enjoyed. They got in a little bit of, well, I shouldn't say trouble, but I guess I had an ex-member had some leanings that were definitely, they kicked his ass out of the band. And then,
Oh yeah.
unfortunately, you know, the internet takes too long to figure it out. And it's like, motherfucker, that guy's been out of our band for fucking years, man. We do not associate with assholes like that anymore. But yeah, that's his side project. And actually, a lot of the live musicians, when he plays, are from the band
From that
also.
band.
Yeah.
Right
So
on.
I thought that was really cool. Just the
cool.
connection of it. Because I was like, he even has kind of a sense of that. You know, you get
Right,
a little bit
yeah,
of that. But yeah.
Yeah, I like Ard. I think a little bit more than the
Yeah.
Winterfell.
I hear you.
You know, for some reason, you know, and I say this to everybody that I recommend this band to. It's not even so much the chanted vocals and stuff like that. It's just like the guitar work. It sounds majestic as hell.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it
Oh,
sounds
yeah.
like it could be in, you know,
Very epic.
Like, yeah. You know, like you could definitely see a fantasy movie with this being the soundtrack.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I dig it.
Everything's played on a mountain. Yeah.
Totally, yeah. With your hair blowing in the wind. Yeah.
Yeah.
If that were me, I'd be playing, you know, facing away from the camera, eventually sliding off the mountain. But cool. Any movies at all, or?
No, we let's see. Last night we watched the what is it? Quiet Place, day one.
You know,
Could have done without it. I liked the first one. The second one was okay. The third one definitely felt just like, so we're just gonna keep milking this tit until it's dry, and
Yeah.
it is dry. It was not good, especially because it. I mean, in the end, you're like, well, the second one showed us what day one was like.
right.
So this is just day one in New York.
This is day one before day one.
Well, and then
In another
also
place.
you go like, if I'm being honest, what this really is just Cloverfield.
Oh, yeah.
You know, aliens land in New York. What do you do? Okay, well, we already saw this in Cloverfield.
Yeah.
I didn't need it. It's a shame Lupita Nyong'o's in it. She's good. She's a great actress. There's a few people in it that are really, you know, do a good job, you know, with what they're given. But yeah, it was pretty bad. The other one I watched is I watched it before it showed up here. Another one of these movies where Netflix is I don't know, their algorithm, and people are loving it, and I'm seeing little articles like this. Oh, it's getting bad reviews, but people are loving it. Some French films, like a cop drama thing. All right, I'll check it out. How bad could it be? Started off with some promise, but boy, oh boy, did it get real bad in the middle. And of course, I've got to watch it till the very end because I've got to see how the stupid thing concludes. You know what I mean? But yeah, other than that, there's a few more queue that hopefully will be better. But other than that, as usual, going backwards. I also watched The Great Outdoors and a few other movies that I've seen 1,000 times. So, and yourself?
Amy, my wife, has started watching Severance.
Oh,
so that's pretty cool from what I can pick up. I actually kind of like walked in while she was already underway watching it.
This is on Apple, right?
Apple,
yeah.
And it's,
I do not have
it sounds like it's an amazing show.
It looks really interesting.
She also was watching The Substance.
Ooh.
I didn't sit with her to watch that movie. I actually walked in like the last 20 minutes.
Oh.
And let me tell you, folks, so I mentioned before, I'm blind, totally blind. I rely on audio description in movies. When I listen to books, it's, through like Audible or audio formats like that.
Right.
So walking in on the last scene in The Substance, which if you're familiar with.
I am not.
Well, there's a pretty important thing that happens in the end. And it relies entirely on the sounds of what's happening.
Okay, interesting.
I had no fucking clue what was going on.
I got you.
But I heard a lot of straining, a lot of disgusting sounds.
Okay.
And, my wife was reacting to what was going on.
Sure.
And I kept asking her, what the hell's happening?
Right.
And she was trying to explain it to me. But I do feel like the people that can see what's happening, especially after I read up on it, are incredibly lucky and unlucky to experience this.
I hear nothing but great things about this movie.
Yeah,
it's something I'm hoping comes to a channel that I pay for because I would really love to see it.
Yeah, so it sounds like a great fucking plot and like subject matter, and just the fact that Demi Moore is in it.
And she's getting a lot of acclaim for it too.
Dennis Quaid is in it, right? I don't know the other actress's name off the top of my head.
I couldn't tell
you. It for all intents and purposes, it sounds like it's a great movie. I just wish I knew what the hell was happening.
Sure,
right? But I'm also kind of satisfied that like I'm glad I can't see what all this grossness that I'm hearing is. So I can at least lay my head at night and be like, cool, you don't have to see that. I'm a big fan of horror, but it sounded fucking disgusting. So
yeah, the movie is definitely, at least the previews I've seen, it looks like a real mind fuck. And
and I'm down for that because I know it's body horror, and being into like David Cronenberg movies from the past, I'm all into that. Long live the flesh.
Sure.
But if I ever get to magically regain my vision, this is going to be one of the first movies I sit down and watch because I want to know what the hell happens at the end.
I'd be excited to hear what the audio description guy says. That's for
I think he'd probably like run out of the room and be like, "You're on your own," So, yeah. But yeah,
just a guy barfing. That's all you're
exactly. Yeah, which it is not too far off from what I heard. So, but yeah, so that's the rundown of what we've been up to, what we've been talking about this past week. Thanks for checking this out.
Absolutely.
We'll come back soonish with some more stuff to blab about. Just keep in mind, we're not experts on any of this, and we're probably wrong on everything we talked about. But hopefully you dug it.
Yeah,
we did.
absolutely.
Cool. We'll see you guys soon.
All right.